Hello, Rich. Richard. Felt natural to call you Rich.
Yeah, please call me Rick. Okay, thanks much.
All right. All right. Likewise. All right. I'm just waiting for a few people, a few more folks to show up. All right. Test, test. Mike is doing well. That looks good. So, in fact, what I should be sharing here. Right, so All right. All right, so we'll start in a couple minutes. I'm going to just grab some water. All right. Well, I see PMI Monterey Bay on, Rosalind, Cecil, Rick. I see CN. PMI Monterey Bay chapter. Are we ready? Are we ready to roll?
I would say so.
Okay. I believe I thought Joel was showing up, but I'm not sure what's happening now. So
Yeah, I want you to get a proper introduction.
oh yeah, it's a good point. Well, you can always introduce me.
Hey, good. Yeah, I didn't bring up I had to introduce you last time. Meet you in person. Hey, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for presenting to us. I really look forward to hearing what you have to say. I know I've heard some amazing things about you. I don't have access to your bio, so what I'm going to do is say, welcome. So happy you're here. Can you please introduce yourself? So
Yes.
what you're doing.
Yes, I will. I will. All right. So I'm Cecilio Mills. I'm the founder and principal consultant for Creative Adaptive Thinking. We are a performance improvement firm that helps organizations and their vendors improve in the areas of product, program, and project management. Besides, working with tremendously talented people, I spend my days either I teach at Cal. I teach product and business process design at the university. I'll work with many of the school districts. This summer, we work with the interns to teach project management. For instance, we have a cohort of students who've been granted $70,000 to produce 3 commercials for the historical museum, so that they can increase, engagement with the youth. So helping them, to ensure that they deliver on that 70K. You turn around and give eight, teenagers a, chunk of money. So, they're doing very well, and I enjoy it. And I've got opportunities to meet amazing folks like yourself and do these talks. So, all right.
You teach at Cal, Berkeley?
Yes.
Wow, fantastic.
Yes, come take my class in the fall. Agile product management. We got that one in the fall, and in the spring we'll process design. All right, let's jump in. Let's jump in and talk about novel thinking, novel and adaptive thinking. So let's get the share going. All right, just give me a confirmation that you're seeing the slide. All right. All right, so welcome to Unlocking the Power of Novel and Adaptive Thinking for Project Success. So we're going to dive into adaptability skills. And you've probably heard that term, but along with that, innovative practices and dynamic risk management and all the techniques that you need to foster collaboration for your team. And my aim today is to provide you with an essential toolkit that's going to allow you to thrive in the landscape that we've got going on. Everything is complex, nothing's easy. So we're going to begin our journey today. We're going to explore the importance and the impact of adaptive and novel thinking, particularly in project management. I'm going to demystify these concepts for you and give you a solid understanding so you can apply it to your role. And then we're going to dive into some specifics, and then we're going to examine just exactly how you can incorporate innovative thinking into your processes. We'll discuss all the methods that you're going to need to foster creativity and adaptability with your team and your projects. For risk management, we're going to talk about leveraging adaptive thinking for more effective and dynamic strategies, right? So I want to equip you with some tools and techniques for identifying, analyzing, and mitigating risk continuously in a changing environment. All right. Then we're going to focus on enhancing your collaboration. All right. So I'm going to give you some actionable ways that you can foster team culture that values and cultivates adaptability. That's our theme, right? And maximizes your team potential. And then we're going to highlight how adaptive thinking can lead to more successful and efficient teamwork. And ultimately, what we're all looking for, more successful project outcomes. So as we journey through these topics, we're going to sprinkle in some real world case studies, give you some relevant data points, some couple anecdotes. I even have some jokes for you guys today, so please allow me to throw a little humor in there. I want to give you a comprehensive but still interesting and enlightening experience that's going to arm you with all the tools and knowledge that you'll need to drive innovation and success in your project. So join me. Let's power up your project management skills right now. We're going to do it with the power of novel and adaptive thinking. If I can jump to the next slide. So here we go. Adaptability and mental agility, they're the heart of the project management. And it's about being open to change and decision making. You got to be agile in that. We've heard that word a lot, right? So if you integrate adaptability into your processes, you can even navigate unpredictable nature's work. So let's see what this means. I want you to consider just the pandemic. I want you to consider some development project that's suddenly getting shut down. Now, how is the team going to meet its milestones without sacrificing quality by rapidly adopting to some remote work model? If they can't do that, how are they going to work, right? So now that we've lived through that and we've seen the successes, the failures, before I dive in, here's my first joke for you guys. So, and this is where I expect you to answer, right? Somebody come off on mute and give me an answer for this. But why are adaptable project managers like spiders?
Fast moving.
Okay, close. Because we can quickly spin a new web when our old one gets damaged. That's why, right? So what we got going on, sir. All right. That's first one. Okay, I got one chuckle. All right, let's jump in. Let's explore this concept of adaptability. All right, so adaptability is your ability to adjust to new conditions quickly, effectively. All right, it involves anticipating and embracing change rather than resisting it. So in project management, your adaptability is your capability to lead your team through some unforeseen circumstance and challenge, or quickly pivot strategies and plan on achieving some new goal. So how does that actually impact your outcome, right? An adaptive project manager is ever changing in this ever changing business landscape, excuse me. They're critical to your success, right? We got to resolve issues. We got to ensure project success, but you need to be flexible. You got to be innovative. You got to be proactive. You got to want to, enhance productivity and all that good stuff. So how do you actually enhance this, right? We always talk about the agile mindset, right? Well, it's really about your teams. The focus is really about your teams. It's about encouraging them to be flexibility. And it's about fostering a culture of learning and innovation. So it's the idea that you want people to be okay with failing. You don't want them to say, oh man, I messed up. And, either now I'm not going to have a role or I'm going to have a diminished, role in the project, whatever may happen. We don't want to do that, right? We want the goal to be for people to become comfortable with uncertainty and change. That's the biggest thing. All right. And so that's how you can really enhance it, right? You got to train yourself in that skill. We always talk about emotional intelligence being one of those leadership skills, but let me make the concept a little more concrete for you. Consider this is Apple's case study, right? We all know about Apple and they first developed the iPod, right? Initially, they focused slowly on computers, and then they adapted their strategy and they broke into the music industry. That transformed them into the technology giant they are today. We don't really talk about that a lot. Everybody thinks about the iPhone. We think about, you know, the MacBook or the iPad, but we forget that it's really the iPod. We don't even have those anymore. But that shift into the music industry, and now with Apple Music and all the things that they've done in that industry. So you can see how adaptability is going to be a game changer. It's going to allow you to better navigate your complexities. And let me give you a little more insight, right? It's not just about reacting to change, but it's about adapting to it. So you guys might have heard of VUCA: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. When you start to think about your projects, if you can use, that's the first one I want to give you. If you can have a framework to think of what are all the things that are constantly changing and shifting back and forth, get your pulse on that. What are all the things that we've got going on that are just uncertain? We're not really sure about it. It's not a for sure thing, right? We pretty much know the things that are complex because that usually keeps us up. But then what about the things that are ambiguous? Our team members kind of know, or maybe they gave us a little bit of information. And now if you transition from the business world to your life world, that happens all the time. Maybe our kids will give us an ambiguous response. We're sort of like, oh, what's going on with that, right? So how do you sort of adapt to that? All right, let's jump. All right, we've got adaptability down. All right. So how does this really work? Let's dig deeper into novel and adaptive thinking because they're both vital tools. So novel thinking, first and foremost, it's all about fresh and innovative ideas. Some of you may have seen my talk before on novel and adaptive thinking about breaking the mold of conventional approaches, right? It's not just about thinking outside the box. You hear that a lot. Reshape your boxes, all right? Get rid of the box. That's what novel thinking is about, right? Something new. So it's about us driving innovation, right? And developing unique solutions and strategies that's going to set yourself apart. So this type of thinking leads to breakthroughs and allows you to design solutions and solve problems. So, all right, that's novel thinking. In a way, you don't have to be right-brained or left-handed or play the guitar, but you can do some things that can actually put yourself into a more creative space. Because I'll tell you that the majority of things that are created aren't necessarily of value to humankind. This may sound bad to all the artists out there, but a painting isn't necessarily solving world hunger. In music, while it's a spirit and will may help make us happy or whatnot, it's not necessarily solving global warming, right? So it's the things that we do that usually they're already existing, and we're putting some new spin on it. We're utilizing it in some new way. We're doing things the opposite way, right? That's usually where we get some sort of breakthrough. So that's novel thinking, and the ways, some techniques to get yourself into that. You got to laugh. You got to be happy. Watch comedy. If you're not watching comedy at least once a month, then you're not feeding your soul. You need to be able to laugh. You got to get rest. So if you know that you have some important strategic initiative for your organization or your team, or as an individual contributor, you've got to produce some content, then make sure that you're resting. Because if you're not well rested, the studies show you can't be creative, right? And you need a dream. So get good rest. Dreaming stimulates your creativity by so much. All right. So those are the three things. Get rest. If it's not, you can't just turn a dream switch on, but if you can, get to that point, maybe take a nap, even daydreaming, just sitting down and looking at the sun will help, just kind of staring off. That opens up your creativity. All right. So that's novel thinking. Now let me get to adaptive thinking. Let's pivot there. Right. So novel thinking generates these unique ideas. Adaptive thinking is about adjusting and changing those ideas in response to shifting circumstances. So you've got all kinds of things that are going on all at once, and can you jump to it? So in a project management context, it's about having the flexibility to modify your plans, your processes, even your goals. Yeah, in Agile, we have this, but in Waterfall, we don't. So what are you doing in that scenario? So in this way, you got to assess new information. You got to learn from it, apply it. And then even in adversity, you got to be able to apply this thing. So, all right. In the coming slides, we're going to dive deeper in how you actually culminate these skills and how to apply them in your role. But I just wanted to make sure we level set about novel thinking and then about adaptive thinking. Whoops, went too far. Let's come back. All right. So how do you inject innovation into this? All right. Well, here's the next joke for you guys. So now I need someone to help me out with this. Why did the project manager bring a light bulb to the meeting?
Yeah. generating new ideas. Bringing electricity into the room.
Close, because she wanted to turn on the team's innovative thinking. That's why I got to turn the light on. All right, maybe that we'll try harder for the next joke. I'll try harder, but I'll try harder. I didn't know if that one was going to hit or not. All right, so I wrote a few. I'm working. I'm a budding a jokester, comedian here. Let's talk about some innovation in your project management, right? Because it's not just about applying new techniques, right? You got to create and implement new products, services, processes, methods all the time. And you got to find these fresh and effective ways to meet your objectives and your stakeholders' expectations. So our role isn't just to manage tasks, right? We're kind of leaders in driving innovation with what we're doing. So how can you foster this innovative thinking in your team? Here's a few steps. The first thing is that open and safe environment I was talking about, where people feel free to share their ideas without fear of criticism. If you don't have that, there's a lot of B-type personalities that are brilliant, but you got to ask them. They're not just gonna offer up their knowledge. You have to go and pull it out of them. And if you don't create an environment, that one opportunity for them to say something, out the window, and then they're never going to attempt again. So create that safe environment. That's number one. All right. First one that you can do. Second one, encourage diversity of thought by including people. Let me say something here. When I say diversity, oftentimes we think of race. That's not what I'm talking about here. When I say diversity of thought, I mean, I want to bring someone who consistently disagrees with me. I want to bring someone on a team who consistently challenges my ideas or my thoughts, because that's how we get innovation. So that's that diversity of thought. Yes, you want to have diversity in terms of both men and women, diversity of religion, diversity of race, diversity of age, but mainly diversity of thought, right? If I have 10 women who are all from the same ethnicity and background, but they all think different, that's just as good as that's better, in my opinion, than having 10 very diverse people who are all thinking exactly alike. All right. So that's the second one. You got to have diversity of thought. Empower your team members to take ownership of their work. All right. I know on the surface, agile, the idea is that, team members, we don't force work on them. Well, yeah, we still do. We'll still have a backlog, and we'll still expect folks to, if not choose something, well, this is your job title, so it kind of goes with you. So we are still kind of, doing the command and control thing. But when I say empower your team members to take ownership of their work and their ideas, what I mean is that as project managers, we have to be better at promoting others. I've run into enough project managers. I suspect none of you on the call are like this, but I've run into enough PMs that have said, oh yeah, that building, I built that. Or look at the software I built. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, didn't all the incredibly talented engineers and developers and analysts and testers, didn't they build it? Wasn't our job really just to keep incredibly smart people out their own way? Because if you give a genius enough time, they're going to find that cure for cancer. They just might take 13 years, and we only had 9 months. So, empower your team members and then put them on a pedestal so that in the future, they start to take ownership of the work. And then reward creativity and innovative thinking, not just results. Right? That's the fourth one, right? If somebody comes up with something that saves us time, that reduces the amount of errors we have, that makes it easier for us to do our job, reward them. It's not always just about how many tasks did you complete, or all of you just did something that is going to help all of us over the course of time. So those are the 4 things that you can foster sort of innovative thinking in your team. Now let's talk about how you incorporate innovation into your planning and your execution, because some of you may know sort of how to create the team, and some of you may not. And then some of you may know how to do planning, and some of you not. So let's talk about the planning piece, right? Because it's going to take many forms, right? If you're doing agile, it could be from the initial backlog, or it could just be when you're grooming, or how you accommodate changes, leveraging technology to streamlining processes, even using design thinking. We can extend innovation to all the problem-solving aspects of our project management. What you'll need to do is you have to think creatively to overcome obstacles and objections to people who don't like change. So when you want to use something new, you want to use some new methodology, you can do things like, hey, I heard about this thing. I'm not sure. I think it's called design thinking. It's got a couple steps, and it's something about like empathizing and iterating. But here, I put together a little schedule, a little schedule that I think would work for us instead of doing the other way. I thought we might try it. Do you have any thoughts on how we can improve this? Now, most people are going to have thoughts. They're going to not like the change. And so they're going to tell you, oh, this is how we should do it, and this and that. But that's okay, because the moment that they've given you their input, that's the moment that you've received their buy-in, right? So you want to give people, I just mentioned earlier, give them the opportunity to have ownership, give them the opportunity to have ownership in the how we work and in the strategy, and they'll reward you with performance as well. So that's another way that you can look at this. So, all right, let's look at a real world example. And some of these are big examples, right? I used Apple in the previous one. This one's a SpaceX one, all right? So I don't know if you guys know about SpaceX, and they had the challenge, right, of bringing that payload into space. And so their idea was to have a reusable heavy launch lift vehicle, right? And so now they've revolutionized that. They are pretty much the number one company when it comes to rocket takeoffs, right? It used to be the Russians. Now they're the ones who are, they're getting their stuff up there. So, to sum it up, you want to foster a culture of innovation in your team, and you want to incorporate into your project planning and your execution. Then you need to create that culture. You need to make sure that you put your team members up on a pedestal, right? You need to empower them, and you need to reward creativity and make sure you have diversity of thought. You do those few things, you're going to have innovation in your projects. All right. And then one last thing, because we always talk about innovation in the concept of technology, but it goes beyond that. It's about thinking creativity about your processes, about how we, work together as a team, or even problem solving. So encouraging, innovating, thinking of your team can lead to performance, more satisfaction, faster problem resolutions. It isn't just about technology. So I just want to make sure I mention that. All right, so let's talk about risk. Let's talk about risk. So I want you to think about the situation where, and you've likely been in this, you and your team had some unforeseen supply chain disruption. I don't know, something happened, right? And then you had to identify some alternative suppliers really quick. You have to mitigate that risk so that you can keep the project on time and on budget, right? Well, oftentimes we don't take the time to sit back and analyze and say, how did we come up with that? We just sort of think, oh, we were under pressure and then the fire and it caused us to do this. But if you actually take the time to sit back and think, what was your process? You'll realize that you probably have some methodology, some way, right? Some wow is what we call some way of working that you consistently are doing. So I want you to think about that. But here goes my next joke. Here goes my next joke. It's time for the next joke. So why don't project managers ever play hide and seek with risk?
Sounds like a very dangerous game.
This is a lame one. It's good luck hiding when you've got adaptive thinking on your side. There's no hiding risk. We got you. All right, let me shift the focus. That's another bad one. I didn't think that one was good. All right. All right, let's talk about risk, all right? Because we know risk can be positive and negative. And even I can say that 1,000 times, and I can't tell you how often I work with organizations, and when we talk about risk, they'll say risk all the time, but what they're really saying threat. And what about the opportunity? I know some of you on this call go to Vegas. That's called positive risk. Okay, those are opportunities. All right, so let's talk about this. All right, and adaptive thinking comes into play here when you want to understand and mitigate this. All right, so in this case, we know about being flexible and responsive to change, constantly scanning your environment, anticipating your risk, adjusting your plans. All right, that's all standard. Right. But we can't afford to stick to this rigid plan when these unexpected events occur. So, yes, we got to be agile. That $1 million word, right? Adapt to our strategy. So, but how do we actually do this? Talk about that. The first thing I want you to think about is, are you promoting a culture of open communication on your team? Really think about that. You might feel like, oh, no, we're open. We use Microsoft Teams, and we use Slack, and, we're communicating. But is it really open? Are people truly voicing their thoughts and their concerns? Are they suggesting things related to project risk, especially to risk? So anyone on the call here, Are we doing these things? And if you're not, don't take it as a negative, because you've already been successful as a project manager. Take it as, oh man, I have one more thing that I can now add to make me even more successful. So a lot of these things are just like, just unlocking knowledge that you can keep adding it to your practice. So that's the first one. Open communication, right? So it's not just that it's transparent, but it's like, I want to hear what you really have to say. I want to hear how much you think this project sucks, and how much you feel that we're not supported by management, and how much you feel that like we lack the proper tools to do our job. Now, we don't want to do that all the time, but I want my team to be open enough that we talk about that. So that's the culture of open communication, right? And then you got to build a learning environment, learning from your past projects and learn from other industries. But I will tell you that most companies that I consult with, they have what I call the lessons learned cemetery. So we have a project, and end of the project, and we do our retrospective or our lessons learned or our post-mortem or our sunset review, whatever term we're calling it. And we don't even have enough time to truly digest it, because we've already been assigned another project from the organization. We don't have time. All right, I'm moving on to the next thing. So think about this. Think about if we changed our practice to maybe doing lessons learned every 3-4 weeks, right? Maybe you're not doing agile, so you can't have retrospectives, but studies say that the adult brain can only remember back 6 weeks ago. And I'm telling you, like 2 weeks ago is hard for me. So, I mean, I don't know about doing a lessons learned at the end of the project. That are we truly going to go and use this for our next project? Or maybe on the next one that you start, you can say, hey, before we start this project, or at some aspect, or maybe a regular cadence at regular intervals, we are going to go look at lessons learned. We are going to go back and look at the assumptions on our projects. We make a lot of those, right? Things that we take for granted. And we're just going to keep this stuff at the forefront of our mind. All right. So that's the second one, the learning environment, a true learning environment, right? Not just we're doing the process because that's what project management says that we can do. Okay. Now, you also have to encourage proactivity. This one's a little harder, right? You can encourage your team members to anticipate risk and develop mitigation strategies, but oftentimes that's something that's internal, and people either inherently want to do a really good job, or they're just going to do the bare minimum, or they don't want to do a job, right? That one's a little bit harder, but you still must encourage it, right? You got to do that part, right? And then your project plan should be flexible. I won't dive into those two too much, because those are very standard. But the two that I really want you to think about is, do you really have an open communication culture? And are you truly fostering a learning environment for your team? And if you're not, great. You're already successful. It means that you can be even more successful, right? So adopting adaptive thinking, right? Say that fast 10 times. Adapting adaptive thinking is going to allow you to reassess your situations, redistribute your tasks, mitigate different issues quicker, because you're going to lean on your team. So in essence, risk management isn't just about, reacting to your risk, but it's about being proactive, being flexible, and being resilient. That term resilient, meaning like, can something you become a resilient project manager when leadership knows that they can put a project in your hand, and no matter what happens, your project is still going to land. It may land a little late, it may land a little over budget, but it'll land. That's called resiliency. That means that we know whatever comes that PM's way, they're going to be able to handle it, and they'll figure things out. All right. So you want to build up your resiliency to that. And just remember, adaptive thinking is going to empower your team members when you have this sort of open communication and dialogue in this learning environment. It's going to empower them to not just react, but actually anticipate the risk and talk about it and be open about things, because they actually want the project to be successful. Right. So it's just about also turning that negative language into a positive for the org. All right, couple more here. So I want you to think about the last project that you've been on, where you had a few departments that had to work together, and you needed regular communication and collaboration so that everybody was on the same page. And then that made the project successful. All right. That's what we're talking about here. All right. It's in those moments where you had a lot of coordination and you did well. We're going to dive into that. Another joke, though. Another joke. Why don't project managers play tug of war?
I'm lost. You're falling over.
Because we know pulling in the same direction is what wins projects.
Oh. Oh, I had a hard time finding that one.
I don't want my team going back and forth, but we have a lot of teams that do that. Our design team may be at odds with the development team, which may be at odds with the implementation team, which may be at odds with sales. We have this a lot. Or we have departments. IT is in its own silo, and then HR is in its own silo, and finance is in their own silo. So we'll have these things, and then we still have to work on these projects to implement Salesforce and financial force. And so now I have to bring all these departments together and break down these silos. Okay. One of the most vital elements that you can have in your back pocket as a project manager is collaboration skills. And the beauty is that in project management, the collective efforts of all of our diverse teams, right? And they bring all their unique skills and all their unique personalities and all of our unique crazies. Like we bring all of that in, right? But the collaboration part, you have to be the glue that binds everything together. I'm going to use several analogies, right? I don't always like to use sports analogy because not everybody plays sports, but if you watch any championship level sports, like when you get to the playoffs, whether it's hockey or basketball or football or baseball or soccer, if you watch that, you'll notice that the best teams aren't the ones that have the best players. They're the ones that play the best as a team. And usually it's because that coach was really good at understanding how to massage egos of people, understanding how to pull up the B personalities, understanding how to squash down the A type personalities. That's what we do on our projects. That's what you all do. You know, when someone is ready to speak all the time, you're like, okay, I can't ask you because you've said the last 100 of the 104 words. Can Sarah say something? Can Lisa say something? Can John speak up? Right? We know these things. So this is about us fostering something other than forcing a team to work together. That's not collaboration. All right, let me tell you that right now. Just making people work together. If you're beyond project management now and you're sort of in a leadership and when you get to that level, or if you're that level now, just making teams collaborate is not collaboration. That's just working together. So that's 5 team members playing. We want to have a team of 5. We don't want to have 5 team members. So you got to create an environment that's going to be synergistic, right? It's collective problem solving. And let's discuss some strategies on that. I'm going to give you some strategies right now. First, it's clear roles and responsibilities. Everybody has to know what they're doing. It's not about your job title. It's about your role on the project. And one of the best things that we can do is have it either up on the wall, or if we have a landing page, some intranet site, wherever we're at, it's role on the project and duties. And if you need to, put someone's name and face next to that role. All right. But the first thing is it's got to be clear, very clear on who's doing what. No misunderstandings. We need accountability. You need to have that open communication. I spoke about that one already. I won't dive into that anymore. All right. You need to promote that culture of respect and trust. I briefly touched on this, I think, on the second slide, but it's that idea that everybody's got to respect folks' opinions, right? We don't. Are we saying people, oh, that was a dumb idea? Well, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. Who would do that? These are things that you hear people say, and you're like, and in your mind, you're like, well, yeah, who would do that? But the person on your team, they would do that. And there's a reason. And sometimes we don't ask them to find out the reason. And that reasoning could be the key to unlocking, right? It could be that, well, I see your reason, like, hey, you're way off, Jeff. That is way off. But now that you explained yourself, man, I see where we're going. Thank you for that. Let's move on. Like, we don't ask enough. So that's one of the things that I will say is make sure that you have that environment that's a culture of respect and trust, and that everybody is able to speak up. All right. You can do that. You're going to be good. Now, to further boost your collaboration, you can leverage technology. Right. So it depends your organization. Most organizations, right? The Microsoft stack. But if you're at a startup, or maybe if you're, maybe if you're a consultant and you're always working with different teams, or you're working with small businesses or startups, right? Asana, Trello, Slack, Lean Kit, all of those things are going to streamline your communication, tracking tasks, sharing documents, right? We all know about these platforms. You got the Google Workspace, you got Teams, the Zoho platform. So let's look at, I thought I had another joke for you. I don't like this joke. But what I do want to say is collaboration is not a choice, but it's a necessity. I want to let you guys know that right now. And as we go forward, you got to think about how you're going to enhance that with your team and see the difference it makes with your project outcome. So again, you're not just making people work together, but you're setting up the environment. So if you have two people, um, one who's senior, one who's junior, you don't make them just work together. Maybe that's a situation where it's a pair-driven work, where somebody's doing work and one's looking over their shoulder, and then the other person's going to do work, and the other person's looking over the shoulder. Oh, you missed the comma. Oh, you need an ampersand there, right? Maybe that's what you do, and there's many different techniques that we can do when you have small groups or you have pairs of people. But you want to be able to leverage your team's collective intelligence, right, and solve your issues. All right, so we came a long way already. All right, we dove deep into adaptability, innovation, a little bit of risk management, some collaboration. So I want you to really think about how these things are going to improve your PM outcomes. Like, you're probably thinking like, I don't innovate, but you do. If you ever slipped paper underneath the door because it was closed for somebody, that you innovated in the moment, right? So I mean, you're doing these things, so, and you can be adaptable, right? You can think about risk management in a different light. So let's look at, let's do a quick summary here. A quick summary for you. So we talked about the importance of being open to change in your decision making, being innovative with your problem solving, right? We discussed how to integrate a culture of novel thinking into your everyday processes so that you can drive project innovation. All right, we underlined the role of adaptive thinking and understanding how to manage your risks in project. Right. And we talked about the crucial role of collaboration. So now I want to leave you with some strategies for fostering an environment for success, right? We talked about a few things, but there's a couple of things I want you to think about. First is to embrace change. I want you to accept that change is constant, and it's a constant factor in our projects. If any of you have ever finished a project exactly to a T, I commend you, but it's one of the hardest things because change is constant. So adopt that mindset that anticipates rather than resist change. Right. Promote a culture of innovation with your team. That means, different brainstorming sessions, value creative solutions, right? Emphasize the importance of learning and development and doing your lessons learned on a more consistent basis, and actually, utilizing knowledge from your team, lunch and learns, brown bags with folks. Utilize novel thinking, right? Diverge. Maybe lateral thinking, think on the side, all right? But approach problems from unique angles and encourage your team to do the same, right? And then understand whatever your management style is, adapt it, because understand that you're going to have different situations and different teams, and they're going to require different styles, and you got to be willing to adapt and meet your team where they're at. Be proactive with your risk management, right? Promote collaboration. And the last one I want to tell you is to have continuous learning. All right, make it a habit. Make it a habit to practice. When I say learning, I don't mean reading books and getting more certifications, and no. I mean learning about, how can I make this a more collaborative environment? Or if I put these two people together and I give them this framework to follow, what happens? Oh, what if I give them that framework? Right? Keep learning, keep trying, right? You gotta fail your way to success. You gotta integrate these strategies and these techniques, and then allow them to drive the innovation that you look for. Allow them to help you manage your risk and the foster collaboration. So we explored all that. Now it's time for more questions, but I have one last joke for you all. All right. So please, one more. Why are PMs like Swiss Army knives?
Multi-dimensional, multifaceted.
That's really
Toolkit.
okay. That's because we got a tool, a technique, and a method for every situation. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's why we're Swiss Army knives. All right. So Q&A. It's Q&A time. You guys have questions for me? Let me know. I want you to know that continuous learning and skill enhancement in project management can lead to a 20% increase in project delivery times and a 15% increase in team efficiency, as identified by Accenture. That's their good stat for the day. So, questions?
This is Chieko. I don't have questions, but I liked your last joke of the Swiss Army knife.
Thank you.
I will try to remember that one in the future. And you packed the hour with so much information, and I'm taking notes. But what I'm going to remember for myself is, or what I liked hearing was that the collaboration is more than working together.
Yeah.
That's really impactful, I think, to remember. And I also liked your note to leverage the team's collective intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the just the concept of continuous learning. That totally makes sense because continuous learning is always meant, go out and get more knowledge. But honestly, it's about the knowledge that you have with the group that you're working with, and to find out more about them, and them knowing that you're asking for those things, listening to them, people that feel listened to and like get to know them want to contribute to projects. They work better together. The synergy really increases. So I love it, and it's very obvious, just your energy and enthusiasm as you're speaking, that you as a project manager enthuse your teams.
Thank you. I try. Jessica, I know you're going to say something, but I want to respond real quick and oh boy, I had a point and I was like, I want to make sure Jessica knows that I don't leave her, and I lost my point. So go ahead. It'll come back to me.
Put something in the chat. You can answer her first too.
Okay. So let's see. Where is my chat? More.
What can a PM do for a melancholy team because leadership is disconnected?
Okay. So this is a really good question, and one of the hardest things to do, because when your leader is, we're going to use the word disconnected. I like that, right? That's very objective. There's no, right? I like that term. Okay. So when this happens, it means that there's two things that when I hear that I assume and I look to validate because of my experience. The first one, when I hear disconnected, it means that we disagree with what leadership is doing. We think they're totally moving in the wrong direction and whatever they're doing is wrong. Right? That's usually the first one. The second one is we've got no support. They want us to do this, but either we're starving for resources. It could be money on the project. It could be for people. We don't have people. It could be that we're not armed with the right, tools to do the job or the right training. So it's one of those two paths. All right. So what can a PM do when you have a team that's in one of those scenarios? There could be a third or a fourth. I haven't experienced everything, right? So those are the two that I see the most. In that scenario, when you have one where, let's say, we feel that leadership is doing the wrong thing, in the former, right? The first one that I explained. In that scenario, as a PM, this is where when I talked about sort of risk management, this is where you get creative and you say, hey, the team has brought up some unique risk management. They feel that going in this direction is going to cause us to do A, B, C, and D for these 1, 2, and 3 reasons. Now, being that this is the strategy the organization has taken us in, before I brought this to your attention, I really wanted to make sure. So we did some analysis, we ran the numbers, and this is what we came up with. But I just don't know if this is right. What do you guys think about this? All right. That's the conversation with leadership. But that's you have to describe to your team that that's what you're going to do. So it's almost like you have to put that thought in their head, and then everybody's like, oh yeah, all right, this is what we can do. And now that you've got them banded against a goal, they can move forward. So that really the antidote here is you've got to find some goal. If they're melancholy, then and they're sad, find some big goal, some North Star, some shining sun that we can say, hey, that's where we're going, and we can all attach for that, right? So if we feel leadership is doing something that they shouldn't be, it's usually let's make a plan to let them know and then let's go this way. Now, let me just dive a deep further, because some may say, well, we did that, CJ. We went to leadership and we told them, and they're still not doing these things. Okay, well, no, in that scenario, I don't have good advice. I still do have advice, though. In that scenario, it's more of, all right, team, well, obviously, we either must have really good relationships with the venture capitalists that are backing our company, or our shareholders are completely happy with the direction that management is taking us, and we all have jobs, and this is what they need us to do. So let's just do it to the best of our ability. Let's find that what are the fun things we can find? How can we just, what can we make? And then you can gamify it, and then you make it about the fun, and it's less about what you're doing and just about the fun. So that doesn't, it doesn't always work, and it's not going, and when it does work, it's not going to work for everyone. You're going to still have those people who are melancholy, like you just, right? But you have to think your 80-20 rule. You're not trying to reach everyone. You're trying to reach a critical mass. Okay, now on the second side, if you have a scenario where I see where they're sort of like, we lack support, it's the same thing. It goes back to risk, because I'm going to tell you guys what, most folks that are executives, that are in leadership, didn't get there without having a very acute sense of qualitative, they have a qualitative perspective, right? They have hard numbers, right? So when you approach them from a risk perspective and you say, hey, this is we're at risk 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever percent chance of going over budget or going beyond schedule. And this is what this means for the organization in terms of either loss of market share or reputation or whatever it is. And that's also where, as PMs, talking about adaptive management, we have to be innovative about how we communicate information. So that's what it is. They're thinking about, you have to think about the audience. Leadership is beholden to either shareholders or the board of directors. So you have to think, well, what are they trying to do? If I can show them that somebody up there isn't right, take this data to them and have them prove the numbers. It's not me. The numbers are here. I just don't shoot the messenger. This is just the numbers. I'm just here to tell you, because I know you're a good executive and you're smart and you want to go with this good number. So here's the number. Said in a much more eloquently put way, but those are the two ways. So that's how I see. So all right, Rich says, I'm a strong promoter of innovation. However, innovation proposals can sometimes be disruptive. Yes, because it means change. For example, when projects get into trouble, some team members can say the solution innovation is to abandon all of these processes. And while the solution innovation might sound appealing enough, yes, it does. Because we didn't think about it holistically, and it was the fix for this, but we didn't think about how it fit in the big pie. So do you have any advice on how to appraise and consider these ideas that are offered under the innovation banner? Yes. I call it the North Star. If you're working on a product, it's usually like your product requirements document or the product vision statement, or if it's a project and you have a charter, some formal charter. We don't always have formal charters, or charters are like the email that just said you're assigned to this project, and right. So but there's some overall objective. There's some reason. So my best advice here is in the triple constraints. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. I'm gonna pay this forward. I was always taught that when I have a project, I need to go to my sponsor and I need to find out of the triple constraints what's most important to them. Now, I don't have to use the word triple constraints or iron triangle, but I just need to find out scope, schedule, budget. So it's like, what's the most important thing, Mr. Mrs. Sponsor? Is it that I get all of this done, no matter how long it takes or what it's cost, but we got to get this done? Is it that I stick to this budget, no matter how long it takes or how much we can get done, but this is the pot. That's all we got? Or is it that this date, come heck or high water, all right, and to keep my language, my boys, right, come heck or high water, all right, this is the deadline or grand opening. And great, Mr. Mrs. Sponsor, I will manage the other two to that one, right? If you just go and ask them, what's the most important? Risk, cost, time. Oh, all three. No, you can't have all three. You can have one, and I will manage the other two to achieve that one. So okay, now bringing this back. So when somebody says they have some solution, the question is it going to get us closer to that? Is it going to get us closer to completing the whole thing? Is it going to get us closer to keeping within this budget? Is it going to get us closer to staying within the deadline? Because it might solve the problem that we have, but it might not. It might hinder us from achieving the objective that we aim to meet. So that's the first one, right? Now, if their solution does point to the North Star, then the next question is, okay, what are we not seeing? What assumptions have we made that we didn't either validate or we didn't think about? Assumptions with regards to, if it's some new tool, well, do we know how to use it? Is it secure, right? Do we work for a bank or for a hospital? And we just can't introduce some new tool without it being vetted for security settings. These kinds of things, right? So then you just start asking the questions. And my advice is ask the question in a manner that leads to yes. Meaning, I'm not trying to ask to shut you down. I'm trying to ask to say, hey, whoa, and we covered this base too? Oh, really? And we got this one? And you did that? Okay, so this is starting to look good. Tell me, did you think about what about the time? Do people need to be trained? Well, how much does it cost? Is there per license cost? We're going to be able to get everybody on this thing? You just keep digging and digging and digging. And the more you dig and the less that you can find an issue, the more you realize we probably have a solid solution. It's pretty much it. If you dig, one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to provide results or answers that let them know and you both are steered away, or they're going to say, I don't know. And if they don't know, then it's going to be like, well, okay, we got to find these things out. Do you have time? That's the next question, right? Because don't expect me and don't expect the team to shepherd your idea, right? Do you have time? I would love to see you, solve this thing so that we can let management know that we have an innovative light bulb brain right here. We need to use you more often. Said more eloquently, right? But, that's kind of the idea. So either they don't know, or they're going to talk themselves out of it, or you're going to realize there's a very viable idea. So that would be my advice. I don't know if it's the best, but it's worked a few times.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sounds brilliant to me.
Well, I failed a few times, so I'm confident enough to know that when it works, right? When you mess up, and then when it does work, and you're like, I got it.
And I know that you got to speak up.
Yep.
That's what you're promoting right there. Asking enough questions to really dig down, because it's really easy to throw something out there and to think you come up with this great, light bulb, but until you discuss it and flesh it out and try to figure out the motivation behind what somebody's asking for or looking to get, or whatever, it really isn't anything.
And you see how you're speaking about that, you're speaking from the term of collaboration. So like, even when we're questioning, we're not questioning to shut you down, we're questioning to, and I'll tell this to my my teammates. I'm gonna go back to sports again. I know it's not the best analogy, but the Phoenix Suns, he was fired this year, but they have a head coach, Monty Williams, and very, very good man. Forget the sports, but he's just a good man. Good people. Some people you just see them, you're like, man, you're just a good person. All right. He has this saying, I'm not calling you out, I'm calling you up. And I love that. So when I have something that I feel is going to be really critical, or I usually preface with people and I say, well, listen, I just want to, and I'll tell them, I was like, one of my favorite coaches, Monty, he has this phrase, I'm not calling you out, I'm calling you up. So, hey, I'm not calling you out, I'm calling you up. And then I let them know, right? Better than saying, I don't want to be rude or not to be mean. And then you turn around and you be rude or you mean, right? We're not going to do that. We're not going to do those things. So words matter. Words matter. Like 95% of our job is communicating. We're either hearing someone and then we're saying it in 10 different ways, depending on who the audience is, or we're taking in all this information, we're synthesizing it, and then we're building some report so that the masses can understand, the vague information that our 15 team members get. So you're already an expert at this stuff. You probably didn't realize it, but you're good at this already. I want you to start really thinking about, what are the things that I'm doing? How am I synthesizing and transforming? And then start to practice those things in other areas outside of project management. Now, this is going to sound bad, but I practice on my kids a lot. So, I do these things. I practice on my kids, and I put, I'm serious. Things like a Kanban board, and so Kanban, to do in progress, right? Well, How many things do you have in progress right now? Oh, I have too much. Okay, all right, good. Yeah. They're going to be very good employees when they get older. But just try some of these things outside. And another good piece of advice I can give you is with your team members, when you're introducing things, or at least what I do, let me say what I do is I try to be informal about it. So let's say a RACI chart. That's like the hot document I've seen in the last 2 to 3 years. Every company wants a RACI chart, right? If you were to go to your team and say, hey, I went to this project management training and they had this thing called a RACI chart. It's a responsibility assignment matrix that tells you about who's responsible and accountable and who to consult and uniform. And we should do this. They're going to be like, get out of here. I don't want any more work. Like, you're going to give me more work. That's number one. Number two, if you were to say, hey guys, we're going to put together a RACI chart. So, you might say, I'm going to send it out to all of you guys and send me your information back. Well, the problem is that everybody doesn't want to be accountable. Right? Nobody wants to be accountable. So then you're going to get back bad versions. So the best thing with something like that is where you do like a BCC, or you go to individual. And then when you get everybody's, you must collect responses so they can own it. And then you send it back out to everyone and says, here is what you have come up with. Here is what you all determined what we're going to have, right? And this is their ownership. And then you'll get the one or two people to speak up. No, we don't want this. We don't want that. And then you'll put it to vote to the team. And then, but if you try to like get everybody in the room, it'll take forever, so that using the RACI chart is an example of like, how you want to sort of, introduce things with your team. You might want to say something like, hey, I saw this tool, or I have another colleague, another PM, and they're using this thing. Like RACI, I'm not sure what it is. Anybody heard of it? If anybody heard of it, they'll speak up, they'll say what it's all about, and they'll probably speak glowingly about it. And like, oh, really? And you just ask them, have you used it? How are you guys doing it? Well, how do you think how could you imagine this being in our environment? It's about asking better questions. I wanted to do a segment on that with you guys, man, and I should have. The asking better questions part is really important. So let me take the last minute of our thing to give that to you all. I start to practice this too. When you ask your team members things, like rather than say, well, how could this work? You might say something like, well, imagine this being in our environment. What issues are we going to face? That's, you have to prompt people. So that's when we're talking about creating this innovative environment, you almost put the innovation in their head. I gave you that joke, why the project manager bring the light bulb? Because you actually have to put that light bulb in and screw it into people's head, and it will turn on. They've got all the electricity, all these, but you got to contain it. You can't let them go off on a tangent or just think of everything. So that's kind of the idea, right? You got to go in and ask these questions in a better way. How might we? That's a good prompt. How might we is a good prompt. I wonder if, right? What are the possibilities? Those are probably the three, because those are the three that came to my mind off the top of my head. So I obviously I use those a lot. I think I did say I wonder if. Now I can't think of anything else because I know there's more. I should put together a list. But these are.
Right? I think that's actually something I would love to have a session about, asking the right questions.
Let's do it.
Because do you do something like that?
I do.
Oh my gosh, that would be so useful for me. I think I'm a better listener, and so I spend my time listening, and I hear things, and I go away and I think, oh, there's some questions I had, but having those questions at the tip of your tongue, prepared, and taking good notes while people are talking, just to get information, because the worst thing is assumptions.
Yes.
And when you walk away from a conversation and you haven't gotten the right information, naturally those assumptions just plant their way in your head, and then you're screwed.
So I do that. I got to think about how I do this virtually, but the session about asking questions when I do this, that workshop, I couple it with whiteboarding. A lot of people aren't comfortable whiteboarding because, I don't draw well or this and that. So I'm going to give you the first tip that I give, that just write in all caps. If you write in all caps, it'll always look good. That's the first thing. The second thing, where's my, store all of your Sharpies upside down. All right. Yeah, because if not, they're going to get all, so store them upside down. Right. Write in all caps, store them upside down. But we do it with a drawing piece because a picture tells 1,000 words. So if we had this session live, even if I had the slides, I would have an easel board. And as I'm talking, I would be drawing pictures and, drawing. And so now you guys are seeing it. And always someone says, well, what? Because the picture is saying 1,000 words. I've only spoke 50, but the picture's filling in the other 9,000, and 950 words. So now we have deeper conversations. So the more that you can whiteboard as project, program, product manager, whatever it is, the more that you can visualize what it is that we're doing, the better you're going to have a understanding, cohesive understanding for your team. And if you have somebody in your team that loves to do that, great. Start working with them so that you guys develop a synergy. So in your sessions, they're kind of like your right-hand person.
Love it. Good stuff.
All right. I will stay on and give you guys so much. I want to respect your time. I got too much ideas in my head and too many tips that we've shared and they work. The last thing I will request of all of you, pay it forward. None of the things that I've given you all, I've come up with myself. At some point, either I saw somebody do it or I remembered it was done to me and I was like, oh, that was effective. I should do it. Or, somebody came and put their arm around me and told me about this. So I just ask that you all do the same. Our industry is really, really immature. My project management has been around since the 40s, right? PMI didn't start till 1969. First thing was proctored in 84. All right. So it's very, very, very young. And I hope to one day see chief project officers because we have a chief operating officer for all of our OpEx. Why don't we have a chief project officer that deals with the CapEx? And don't tell me that's the PMO director. That's not the same thing. So, as we mature our field, we need to have somebody at the helm that's managing all the capital expenditures. And maybe it'll be one of you one day. So I appreciate you all being with me today.
Amazing.
Any other questions or anything you got for me? All
I
right.
have more questions, but I don't want to make everything go. It was great. Go for it.
Email me. Yes.
Okay, how do you foster a collaborative team when the business owner is someone who really, really quashes collaboration? He is like, for instance, I'll kind of give you the avatar. Is an older doctor and his business, rightly so, he started his business practice, but it's really all about him. And so in team meetings where we're trying to accomplish quite a lot and work very, very agile on the side, to accomplish all of his objectives. But in meetings, he really quashes any kind of collaboration. It's really 100% about him, his opinions, his past, it's really hard to foster that collaboration. Do you have any strategies or suggestions for how I could turn team meetings around that include him so that it's not just,
Yeah. Don't have those meetings with him. That's it.
It has to be respectful. He's a doctor.
Yeah. Well, you don't have those meetings with him, but it goes back to I'm calling you up and not out. So a couple ways I might, I only have the information you gave me, right? So there's more, right? But I'm going to give you how I would handle this. I can think of 3 ways already. The first one is with the doctor. So the first one is when I start to think about it and I think about what are my meetings? And then I will categorize them. What type of meetings are we having? And then I'll start to think about in those categories of meetings, what are the ones that the doctor is the most? Now, if it's all of them, that's one thing, but it could be that there's a specific type of meeting that, okay, this is where the problem is. So that's your first thing is to baseline and find where the problem is. And then when you find that, but let's just assume for the sake of this conversation, it's all meetings or at least strategy meetings. Then what you can do is you get to a point where you say, doctor, we're in these meetings. These meetings are taking 3-4 hours. This is not the best use of your time. I think it'd be best for you to provide the vision and a strategic direction that we're going, and for you to present that and let us know what your thoughts are. And then I think it's going to be best if the team can do their thing, either offline or in a separate session. And, you can focus on some of those things. So that's the first one, right? There's like some angle, something to that effect, but there's some angle first, that not I'm going to say first, but that's one way. The other way is to simply have additional sessions with the team, and then you shorten a session with the doctor. So the session with the doctor is more so like either a validation, sort of like an introduction and a validation. The doctor's going to introduce what we're going to do, then we go off and do it. Then we're going to come back to the doctor and show it, and then he's going to validate if he likes or doesn't like. And that's one way, and that's kind of like your agile way, right? Sort of like like the demo sprint. Put him in that position of a product owner. So that will be the third way. Is now you talk to the doctor and you say, hey, this is your business, and a service is still a product. You are the owner of this product. We got to think about creating this, everything that needs to be done, and you have to own this. But you need to own what needs to be done, and the team has to own how they're going to do it, right? Because, doctor, respectfully, you're not the nurse, and you're not the anesthesiologist, and you're not all these other people. You're just brilliant at this, and this is what we need you to be brilliant at, so the other people can be brilliant. So there are more ways, but that would be one. The other way would be this: depending on the relationship you have with the doctor, you start to record your sessions. You record 2 or 3 of your sessions, all right? And at the end of 2 or 3 sessions, you're going to review each one, and don't just do one. You need to do 2 or 3, right? That way you can say, hey, doc, I noticed, look at these times. And then now you can pull it up. You're going to see tense moments. There's going to be moments where, people's faces are like, right? Those stone faces, those looks like I'm trying to play poker face and being professional. And now you can point that out to the doc. And you can say, doc, if you didn't see this in person, I need you to know this is the impact that it's causing on a team. And so now the doc can see it. It's not, and they'll see, no, everybody, yeah, no one's trying to be disrespectful. I see that there's not this openness. And it might not even be that. It may just be you find these contrasting moments. You find the moments where everybody's really collaborative and forward thinking and the needle's being moved. And then you juxtapose it against those moments where there's a lot of tenseness and rigidity. And then you just say, we need to get better at this. How do we get better at this? And you can put it back on the doctor as well. We can talk more about this too, because there's a lot that goes into this, meaning like because you have this title as a doctor and as the business owner, and then you have the role that he plays, and then you have his personality, and you have all the other team members' personalities, and then there's other things that come into account, like how long you've been there and the type of relationship you guys have, and like if I get an understanding of that, then I can be confident enough to say this is what you should do, Jessica. Versus like right now, I'm just throwing some things out there. So,
So how do we schedule one mentoring session?
I'm gonna put my email address in here. You're gonna email me right now, and I'm going to send you a link to my scheduler, right? Like my Calendly, and then you'll just book like that. Okay. Thank you all. Rich, anybody else? All right.
I just want to thank you. CJ, your enthusiasm is infectious. Your knowledge is inspiring.
Thank you.
And I'm just excited for the next time you come and speak to us about the next topic, because just thank you.
We're going to do it. Asking better questions. I have it written down here, and this is my official book. My family knows if it's not in one of these, it's not real yet. So
yeah, it's posted on my forehead, because it takes me not, what'd you say, 30 days to forget something?
well, they say 6 weeks, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know about 6 days.
No.
6 days.
I think by the time I walk back to my pantry, I've forgotten what I'm looking for. So post it on my forehead.
Last thing I want to tell you guys, since you mentioned Post-it, here's a little secret about sticky notes. If you peel your sticky note sideways, this thing can come off and on thousands of times. All right. The second let me use one I don't want to use anymore. These are on my desk. The second you pull up, well, that one's old. Here's a good one. The second you pull up like this, it does this curling thing. And as soon as it curls, it loses its adhesive qualities. So pull from the side. All right. That's my tip of the day to all of you. Good night. Be adaptive in your thinking. I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Tina. I appreciate it.
Thank you all. Bye. You too.
Bye.
Bye.